Hello, everyone. We are here today to share some information and guidance on completing the early childhood components of the Super App for the 2021-2022 school year, which will be submitted in February of 2021. My name is Taylor Dunn, and I work on the early childhood team at the Louisiana Department of Education. With me today, I have my colleagues Lindsay Bradford, Lizzie Kosei, Leslie Doyle, and Britt Braun, all of whom will be presenting content on this webinar today. In this session, we hope that participants will gain an understanding of the early childhood priorities, including local governance, early childhood access, and classroom quality. Participants will make connections between these priorities and identify funding opportunities available to support these priorities in your school systems and community networks. So here is just a glimpse into the Super App timeline this year. All of the Super App resources and the Super App itself will be released November 6th of 2020. Super App is submitted to the Louisiana Department of Education on or before February 5th, 2021. And then during the course of the month of March 2021, department staff will reach out to you to provide feedback on your submissions, ask clarifying questions, request any additional information. And this includes early childhood components and any information we need from the early childhood lead agencies. Then we hope to announce all competitive funding allocations in April and take those allocations to approval by BESI, April 20th, 2021. I just want to let you know that there is additional information and planning materials on the department's school improvement library, which you should be able to access through this slide if you have the PDF version of this slide deck. And it should also be accessible on the department's homepage at louisianabelieves.com. So the objectives of the session today will focus specifically on the early childhood priorities and the funding opportunities to support those priorities. So specifically, we're going to talk today about local governance, early childhood access, and early childhood classroom quality. And then we're going to walk you through how to complete those questions, what the questions related to those three priorities will look like, and what competitive funding opportunities are available to support those priorities. So now we're going to jump in, and I'm going to spend a little while describing just an overview of early childhood in Super App. So I want to start by grounding us in the acknowledgement and understanding that it is critically important that school systems have a vested interest in ensuring that children birth through 5 that are at risk of entering kindergarten behind have access to high quality experiences in their early childhood years. We know that research demonstrates that children and the experiences that children have before they turn 5 have a dramatic impact on how likely they are to enter kindergarten ready to learn. And we also know that often kindergarten readiness is a predictor for how well children and students will go on to perform in later grades. So we really want to emphasize just how important it is that school systems, as well as community network lead agencies, be thinking about how to take advantage of funding opportunities to support early childhood priorities and to ensure that as many children as possible have access to high quality experiences in their early childhood years. So what does early childhood look like in Super App? The early childhood strategy component of Super App sits in the LEA structures domain. And then questions related to early childhood fall into 3 broad categories. The first of the 3 categories is local governance. And that is aligned to the department's priority that communities should be driving faster rates of improvement in both classroom quality and early childhood access at the local level. The second priority is access. This is a really big priority of the department. We want to ensure that you all have the tools and strategies and funding support to ensure that more children birth through age 3 specifically can access publicly funded spots in high quality childcare centers. And then lastly is quality. We want to ensure that all early childhood classrooms in the state are offering high quality care and education for the children enrolled in those classrooms. I also want to call to your attention that we have released a guidance document that walks through all of this in a little bit greater detail. This guidance document is linked in the school system planning guide as a resource. And the guidance document also is aligned to these three key components of the early childhood section of Super App. And it walks you through question by question guidance and specific resources and supports for how to respond to those particular questions. Also in that guidance document, in the appendix of that document, we've included quite a bit of detailed information on each early childhood funding source that school systems and community networks can leverage to both expand access and improve quality of early childhood programs in their community. So now I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Lindsay Bradford, who's going to walk through just who should be completing Super App from an LEA to a community network perspective. Lindsay?
Thanks, Taylor. Like Taylor said, I want to take just a few minutes to make sure everyone is clear on what your role is as far as submitting this information. Lead agencies who also serve as the school system should collaborate with your program partners to develop responses to all the components of the Super App, including funding request information as well as your access and quality responses. That information will all be submitted via Super App by the lead agency. Community networks serve children birth to 5 across centers and schools systems should really work together with all of your program partners to ensure that all children within your community network are accounted for while you're planning. So if you are a school system who is not a lead agency, a charter management organization, or another school district who is not actually the lead agency in your network, there are other methods for getting this information submitted. You should work with your lead agency to complete the blueprint and submit the link in the appropriate area in Super App. You should also work with your lead agency to submit your funding information and your seat requests and the funding request document, which will actually be submitted by your lead agency in another method other than Super App. And then for the access and quality questions, you should work with your community network so that all of your responses align and are the same, inclusive of all sites in your network for these questions. So the lead agency will submit the responses via a separate method, but you should also submit those same responses within Super App. And if you are a school system who is not a lead agency, this is sort of an outline of what it will look like for you. For the blueprint, you'll work with your lead agency to submit the network's blueprint link. For the early childhood access questions, you will work with your lead agency to identify the strategies to increase access and submit all of those responses in Super App. For the funding request, you'll work with your lead agency to submit your actual seat requests for your 4-year-old programs and your birth to 3 PDG program, and you will provide that information to your lead agency who will submit that information. The quality questions, you should work with your lead agency to identify curriculum and professional development needs across all birth to 5 sites. And then specialized supports, school systems will work with early childhood lead agencies to identify the vendors and train teachers on specialized supports for children with disabilities. And if you are not sure where you fit in to these different categories, this is a list of all of the lead agencies who are not school systems. So if you find yourself on this list, you will submit the information as we've discussed previously. And if you are unsure, please feel free to reach out to us and we are happy to walk you through the process as it applies to you specifically.
Okay, so now we are going to walk through the individual components of the Early Childhood Super App sections, beginning with Early Childhood Blueprint. So each community network has been encouraged and empowered to create a blueprint, which is an early childhood strategic plan. Those blueprints include an analysis of the network's current state. So for example, lists various data points, gives a real in-time picture of what is happening in the world of early childhood in that network, at that moment. So it gives a good glimpse of an understanding of where the network currently is. So to set it up so that the blueprint could then go into where the network wants to go. In addition to that analysis of current state, each blueprint has guiding statements, including a mission and a vision statement. Also, possibly the most important part, each network would create 3 to 5 goals in their blueprint. Those goals would have strategies, resources, and performance metrics listed. So this is really a strategic plan. As Taylor stated earlier, we want our networks to be driving faster rates of improvement at the local level, and the blueprint is a great starting point in order to do that, to set that clear vision, work together to agree upon what your goals are, where you want to take the network in terms of early childhood. So last year, we had 55 of our community networks develop and submit these in the 2020 Super App. We encourage all of our networks to develop them for the first time or to update their blueprint from last year to include in the 2021 Super App. And please keep in mind that those who do have a blueprint, those that have a strong blueprint, are prioritized for competitive early childhood funding opportunities. So in order to complete this section, it is very simple. The Super App will simply ask the LEA to enter the website link to that early childhood blueprint. So yes, it is not an uploaded document. It is a spot to link to a website where the blueprint has been uploaded on a website. So communities, keep in mind, that do not have a blueprint, they can simply type "not applicable" in the box. And LEAs that are not the lead agency need to work with their lead agency to submit the correct link to the blueprint. So we want to make sure that, like we said earlier, LEAs that are not lead agencies work in collaboration with one another to make sure the blueprint is the correct link. And we have provided a lot of guidance for our community networks to develop this blueprint. And there is Super App Blueprint guidance available. That guidance includes things like all of the elements we want incorporated in the blueprint, including how to develop a mission and vision statement, how to create SMART goals. Also includes links to an optional workbook and a suggested template that early childhood networks can follow. If you have any questions about the blueprint section, please feel free to contact me at lizzie.kose@la.gov with any questions you might have about this component of Super App.
So now I'm going to jump back in. This is Taylor again, and I'm going to talk through some of the pieces of the early childhood access and coordinated funding request section. And I'm going to once again call on Lindsay Bradford to share a little bit more information about the coordinated funding request. So to get us started, I want to ground us in the data related to access to high quality early childhood programs in the state of Louisiana. Most of you have likely seen this data before, but this has been updated based on fall 2020 information. And so looking across the age groups that we serve in early childhood, I want to call out some very significant and persistent gaps in access to quality. So if you look on the right side of this graph, you'll see a bar for 4-year-olds served. And the majority of that bar is filled in with purple, which signifies that 90% of economically disadvantaged 4-year-olds are served in high quality pre-K programs in Louisiana. Another 2% of economically disadvantaged 4s are served in programs that have not yet reached proficient, so those are low quality programs, and only 8% are not served at all. However, if you look toward the left of this graph, you'll notice that only roughly a third of 3-year-olds are being served, and just a very small fraction, roughly 5% of economically disadvantaged birth through 2-year-olds have access to any publicly funded early childhood sites. And this is really the focus of this section of Super App, is to encourage school systems and early childhood community networks to think about how they can be closing some of these gaps at the local level. So I do want to share a little bit of an update on results from last year's Super App. So During the 2020 Super App, Early Childhood Community Network submitted birth through 3 funding requests as part of their coordinated funding request for the first time. And we at the department were able to award nearly or more than $6.5 million to establish more than 600 new birth through 3-year-old seats in Ready Start networks across the state. These allocations were an average of $503,000 per Ready Start network, with some Ready Start networks receiving much more than that and some Ready Start networks receiving less than that. We are so excited about the progress of these seats, and we're extremely excited to announce that we anticipate that there will be more funding available for birth through 3-year-old seats for the upcoming school year, which you will request in the 2021 Super App. So even if you did not receive birth through 3-year-old seats last year, we encourage you to consider submitting a bold and ambitious request for birth through 3-year-old seats and for 4-year-old seats again this year. And we hope that we'll be able to award more of those birth through 3-year-old seat requests than we were able to last year. I also want to note that we know that communities have very different contexts at the local level. So while you all are working on completing this section of Super App, the early childhood access questions, you should be considering that local context that you face. So for example, we know that some communities in the state serve every 4-year-old in need, and some go above and beyond that, while others may not yet offer LA4 programs. Some communities in the state have several childcare partners, and others have few or no publicly funded childcare partners in their community. And lastly, we also know that some school systems have varying degrees of partnership established with their Head Start partners, and sometimes the school system actually functions as the Head Start grantee. So we recognize that there's diverse contexts across the state, and it will be really important for you to understand that local context while you identify opportunities to expand access. So the first question related to early childhood access in Super App is LS 2.1. LS 2.1 is going to ask that you identify the funding strategies that you plan to use for the 2021-2022 school year that will expand access for birth through 3-year-old children in your community network. So to just walk you through this, and this is a check all that apply, you will see those different funding strategies represented in your Super App. The first is placing 4-year-old seats at childcare centers. So we know that it may be helpful for you to think about using some of your 4-year-old seat funding to partner with childcare centers and offer those seats in diverse delivery. That may provide a sustainable funding source for your childcare centers and allow them to serve more birth through 3-year-olds through other funding sources. You may actually provide directly financial support to offer more birth through 3-year-old seats in childcare centers. You may decide to work with your Head Start grantee to consider converting Head Start seats to early Head Start seats so that you can be serving younger children. You may develop agreements with Head Start to serve more 3-year-olds, to reach more of your 4-year-olds in schools, and to expand access to 3-year-olds in Head Start. You may use IDEA dollars to expand delivery of early childhood special education and other related services to childcare centers. And last but not least, you may actually secure brand new funding sources to serve even more children birth through 5. The second question related to access in Super App looks very similar. It's LS 2.2. However, this question is specifically related to 4-year-olds. So we've broken out birth through 3 as one category and 4s as a separate category. So similarly, this is a check all that apply. And you will go through and indicate all of the strategies that you intend to use to expand access for 4-year-olds within your community network. So some of these include offering targeted seats for 4-year-olds beyond those funded by LA4. So you might think of raising that income requirement through other funding sources to reach children who are not eligible for LA4, but who may be otherwise at risk in your community network. You may place school-based pre-K classrooms in zip codes of highest need. So do a bit of a landscape analysis and identify particular pockets in your community that really need new pre-K classrooms to serve those children. You may maximize eligibility criteria for pre-K funding. So this is essentially when you think about all of the various pre-K funding that your school system has access to, really making the most of each of those funding sources by enrolling children who are not eligible for multiple funding sources in the more restrictive funding sources. So you really want to make sure, for example, that in your Head Start programs, that you're really targeting as many children as possible who are eligible for LA4 in the LA4 program, and targeting as many children as possible that are eligible for Head Start in the Head Start program. You may collaborate with the Head Start to serve the maximum number of 4-year-olds across each funding source, which is related to what I just described with the eligibility criteria. And then you may also consider offering universal pre-K for 4-year-olds in the school system. For both of these questions, there's also a blank other where you can offer up strategies that we may not have thought of that you or your school system or your community network plan to use for the following year. So now I'm going to turn it over to Lindsay Bradford, who's going to walk us through the coordinated funding request process.
Thanks, Taylor. Question LS 2.3 is where your coordinated funding request template will be uploaded. And you'll see that the very first question that it asks is the school system is the lead agency. If you check no, it won't even give you the option to upload anything and you'll just move to the next question. But if you are the school system who is the lead agency, you'll check yes, and it will open up this second part of the question where it actually asks you to upload the completed funding request document. So lead agencies who are the school system will upload their funding request in this section. And we will provide the link to you, as it's also available online and actually also linked on the next slide. So there's plenty of places where you can find the actual coordinated funding request document. If you have trouble with that, you can always reach out to us and we will send it to you via email. Just a little bit about the coordinated funding request. School system lead agencies will submit their coordinated funding request documents through Super App, as I mentioned. And lead agencies who are not school systems will submit their funding request either via their FTP folder or through a survey that we will provide much like last year. Again, this year, seats will be requested for both LA4 and NSECD seats, as well as the PDG funded birth through 3-year-old seats. These programs have specific eligibility requirements and are there for the purpose of serving economically disadvantaged children only. Due to limited funding, we can't guarantee that we will be able to grant all of your requests, but we do encourage everyone to ask for as many seats as you believe you have the capacity to serve, because we can't give them to you if you don't ask for them. And that's true for both the birth through 3 seats and the 4-year-old seats. As you can see, there is the link for the coordinated funding request template. And just again, lead agencies who are school systems should submit their request by uploading it into the Super App. So you'll go directly to the link, fill it out. It is an Excel spreadsheet, and you'll fill it out and upload it into Super App. And if you are a lead agency who is not a school system, you will still access it through the link, fill it out, and submit it either through your FTP folder or a survey that we will send out to you. If applicable for the first time this year, lead agencies will be asked to report any non-state and non-federal funding that you've secured by a local entity. Lead agencies that secure local funding may actually be eligible for additional funding through the Early Childhood Education Trust Fund to fund additional seats in Type 3 early learning centers. So we want you to think about this really carefully and make sure that you include that information on your funding request. It will be a new tab, so that's where you'll look for it. There will be an additional tab to complete on the funding request template itself.
Hi, I'm Leslie Doyle, and I will go on for our third final part for early childhood quality supports. Louisiana's vision for early childhood is that all children enter kindergarten ready to learn. So in order for us to reach this goal, we need children to be able to access early childhood classrooms that have teachers that support their emotional development with sensitivity and warmth, classrooms that are organized to manage children's attention, time, and behavior, classrooms that promote learning through engaging language and interactions, and support child development with high-quality instructional tools such as our early learning and development standards, curriculum, and assessment. Teachers in all early childhood settings need strong and coordinated professional development, curricula, and assessments that advance the quality and continuity of practice across early childhood settings. Grant awards supporting early childhood quality are available through the Comprehensive Literacy State Development, or CLSD grant. The purpose of the CLSD grant is to award competitive funding opportunities to school systems to advance literacy and pre-literacy skills for all children from birth through grade 12, with a special emphasis on disadvantaged children, including children living in poverty, English learners, and children with disabilities. The state must ensure that 15% of the subgranted funds serve children from birth through age 5, 40% serve students in kindergarten through grade 5, and the remaining 40% is divided equally between middle and high schools. Eligible expenditures for CLSD funding include high-quality early childhood curriculum and/or supplemental curriculum materials, such as big books or manipulatives, for purchase in publicly funded birth through 5 schools and centers. These materials must be purchased from Tier 1 curriculum vendors. Approved curriculum supports to enhance family literacy engagement, such as Teaching Strategies, Ready Rosie, and Family Engagement Lab are also eligible. We are in the process of adding additional vendors to our guides that support family learning and will keep you updated when these changes become available. Site licenses for online resources necessary to implement high-quality early childhood curriculum, such as e-libraries for class use and home connections, and computer software to reinforce skills. We know that many of our curriculum options broaden their resources to support virtual learning, so that is another eligibility. Professional development by vendors in our PD vendor guide are also considered. This includes training and coaching on curriculum, assessment, and/or teacher-child interactions. The first question relating to early childhood quality asks school systems to identify high-quality curricula and/or curricula supports for the 2021-2022 school year. By now, most of our early childhood classrooms are equipped with curriculum. Self-reported data shows that 85% of all classrooms have access to high-quality curriculum, compared to 78% of classrooms in child care centers. For the 2020-2021 school year, the department awarded more than $3.5 million to support early childhood quality using our final year of Circle funding and our initial year of CLSD funding, which was called Early Childhood Literacy Fund in SuperApp and EGMS. This funding supported 39 school systems and/or early childhood lead agencies with an average allocation of $92,000. 65% of these allocations were awarded to support birth to 3 classrooms, with $1.2 million used to purchase high-quality curriculum for these classrooms. When completing your SuperApp application, you will identify the number of classrooms per age band that will be newly using high-quality curricula and/or curricula supports. These curricula supports could include the family literacy engagement resources that were mentioned earlier. You can utilize the department's contract pricing to assist in projecting your requests. We know, based on the blueprint, identify the number of early childhood classrooms in each age band that will be newly using the following high-quality curricula and/or curricula supports for the 2021-2022 school year. Newly is bolded because you cannot use CLSD funding to purchase curriculum for classrooms that already have a Tier 1 curriculum or a site that you have previously purchased curriculum for using Circle or CLSD funding. Funds cannot be used to provide duplicative payment for materials or activities within each school or childcare site that were previously funded with these funds. Curriculum purchases can be made for any type of early childhood classroom within the district. This includes our Type 3 childcare centers, Head Start and Early Head Start, as well as our public and non-public pre-K. We know that curriculum is great, but we need to be able to train and prepare teachers to deliver curriculum effectively. So one of the other items on Super App is asking us to identify which professional development vendor will be providing training on high quality curricula, child assessments, and or interactions for the 2021-2022 school year. So successful implementation of high quality curriculum, teacher-child interactions, and assessments requires the following. Initial support. You need to be able to provide pre-service professional development for teachers and leaders that builds their familiarity with the structure, approach, and key components of high quality curricula and assessments. And in addition, ongoing focused coaching. We have to build teachers and leaders' ability to use high quality curricula and assessments, deepen their knowledge of content and content pedagogy, build skills in using child data to meet the needs of all learners, and demonstrate how to use classroom observations to foster teacher relationships, teacher leaderships, collaboration, and improved implementation. Based on the blueprint, you will be identifying the number of classrooms in each age band that will partner with our PD vendors in the PD vendor guide to provide that professional development on high quality curricula, child assessments, and interactions for the 2021-2022 school year. Remember that funds cannot be used to provide duplicative payment for materials or activities within each school or childcare site that were previously funded through Circle or CLSD grant. For example, if Circle or CLSD was used to fund an initial training on curriculum, that same training cannot be provided to the same site. However, a different follow-up training may be provided. If the same training is provided to the same site, documentation may be required to show that different teachers participated in each of the two trainings. And on a side note, coaching is not considered as a duplicative purchase because of its reoccurrence. So this would only be for those specific training sessions. Professional development purchases can be made for any type of early childhood classroom within the district that receives public funds, including Type 3 childcare, Head Start and Early Head Start, and our public and non-public pre-K. And if you have any questions with some of the details that I was just explaining as far as the restrictions with our CLSD funding, please reach out to me at leslie.doyle@la.gov with your concerns. And here's what it looks like when you are entering in that information to request funding for professional development on high quality curricula, child assessment, and interactions through CBRAT. And I will let Brittany Braun take over as she's explaining how to complete the application for supports for young children with disabilities.
Thanks, Leslie. This year, Super App is going to include question LS 3.3 in order for lead agency networks and school systems to select and identify a vendor or vendors on the use of specialized supports for children ages 3 through 5 with disabilities. The Partnerships for Success vendor guide includes early childhood specific vendors that provide professional development to develop the capacity of educators to deliver specialized supports in specific areas, which you will note in the priority area section. Those include communication, sensory environment, functional skills, assistive technology, or executive functioning. This funding request can be a maximum of $3,000, and any additional funding needs to be met with additional state or local funding. Question SDN 3.1 and 3.2 are included in the Students with Disabilities section of Super App and asks school systems to outline steps to identify children with disabilities early and accurately. Specifically, how will community networks screen children ages 3 through 5 in order to determine a child's individual needs and then make both instructional and referral decisions? School systems are encouraged to work with early childhood lead agency networks to complete this section. If you have any additional questions, you can contact me at brittany.braun@la.gov.
Great. And now this is Taylor. I'm going to close us out with some information about what ongoing support you can access for completing Super App. So we just want to make sure that you are aware of the various different types of support that you can access. I will add that all of this will be available in the School Improvement Library, so you should certainly familiarize yourself with that library. You should also, if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the LDOE weekly newsletters where you'll access information and updates about Super App. We will also share information through our early childhood newsletters for those of you who are subscribed to that newsletter. There will be system leader monthly calls on which we will discuss updates and announcements related to Super App. So you should certainly have a representative from your school system on each of those calls. There will also be Super App planning support calls available for you. And then there's a whole school system relations team that you all can take advantage of and tap into with particular questions. And there will be ongoing office hours scheduled on Fridays at 10 a.m. Details about those office hours will be shared via the LDOE weekly newsletter that you can call into and ask specific questions related to Super App. I will also note that during November, December, and January, there will be regularly scheduled team level office hours. So someone from the early childhood team will be available for standing office hours if you need to take advantage of those to have questions answered. So more information will be shared about those standing office hours soon, but please note that that will be available for you. And then I would just end with saying we've shared individual email addresses throughout these slides. So you will notice that for each of the slides on the questions themselves, we've indicated an early childhood team member who you can contact directly if you have questions specific to that set of Super App questions. However, with general questions related to the school system planning process or to Super App in general, please reach out to ldoe.grantshelpdesk@la.gov and include Super App in the subject line, and those questions about general things related to Super App can be answered there. We'll end by just thanking you all for your time today. We hope this has been informative and has supported you such that you'll be able to tackle these questions in Super App. Please do not hesitate to reach out to us if you have questions or concerns or need a thought partner or need support working through these questions. Thank you so much, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your week or day or weekend, and please let us know how we can help. Thank you.